All right, everyone, this is Brian Smith, publisher of Inside the Knights. Tonight, I welcome in Zach Goodall from All Gators, publisher over at that site. Zach, good to have you on the show this evening.
Hey, Brian. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I'm excited you've got your site and your pod rolling, and I'm excited to join you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Since you run the University of Florida football website and I run the UCF football website, I mean, that's basically what we focus on. Just happens that they signed a little contract here recently to play a 3-game series that both teams' fans have been clamoring for I don't even know how many years, and it has finally come to fruition. Initial thoughts about the series being signed between the Gators and Knights.
Yeah, I guess it really started to rile up back in 17, 18 timeframe, that offseason when things kind of died off and no one had anything to talk about. Suddenly, here's UCF with the national championship celebration at Disney World and all that. Florida fans didn't like that. They didn't like that one bit, even though they really couldn't talk after the 2017 season. When you go 4-7 and fire Jim McElwain halfway through the year, I guess that's another conversation. But that rubbed a lot of Florida fans the wrong way. It started up this little rivalry that they've got going on here that's not based on any recent games. And now we finally have a chance to see these two programs go at it. Really, the two most successful programs in the state for the past since Florida State fell off, I guess. Yeah. And that's exciting. That's great for the state. And obviously, UCF's got a new coach that has a lot of SEC experience. And, we'll see if these coaches are around for at least the 2024 game. I'm not so sure about the 2030 games. But if they are, I mean, what a great start to this series with Dan Mullen going against Gus Malzahn.
That is interesting because Gus was, of course, at Auburn. For those who didn't know, he was the offensive coordinator in 2010 when they had Cam Newton who won the national title. Cam wins the Heisman. He becomes the head coach in 2013. They almost won it again, ironically, against Florida State. And they played against each other before they coached. So they know each other, and I'm sure that's one of the reasons the series got knocked into place. And it's good that it happened. However you want to argue, this should have been 2-1, shouldn't have been. I'm not really concerned with the semantics. I don't know what your thoughts are, but it's just the way it is. Butts and seats is what athletic directors want, and that's what UF wants. So they weren't going to really hedge their bets on that. I'm not surprised how it worked out. But if you get a play in Gainesville, where you and I were the other night at Swamp, it's not a bad gig. So it's pretty neat plays. I'm really looking forward to that. I know it's 3 years down the road, but it gives you 3 years to talk about it too. You just mentioned the two coaches being there. I have been around Gus enough to tell people before anybody even asks, I will be floored if Malzahn is not still in Orlando as the head man of the Knights at that point. He is all in. He loves it there. He called just unsolicited the other day at the press conference. He said it's a gold mine to recruit here. Coaches like that word with recruiting, and they don't drop it for nothing because he's putting himself on the spot. He expects to have a really dynamic roster. And I'm going to tell people right now they've got more talent right now than most people know because of transfers and all that. But they're going to build it. What do you think about the opportunity for UF? Do they need to play teams like this, or is it just you think because Dan knows Gus and that's why, or should they have bypassed it?
I think that Dan knowing Gus definitely helped because for Florida, especially with SEC expansion on the horizon, probably coming sooner than it's actually supposed to. They're not going to be doing these games as much. But you know what? I prefer a UCF game with a team that's in the state than facing UT Martin or Samford or any of these. Yeah, these are the games that the fans want, even if it's not a rivalry, even if it's not SEC. They still want the rights to brag about who's the best team in the state. So you got to do it. And the thing that I think is Danny White, he really drove home the idea that UCF was at the Power 5 level or the Power 6 level while he was there because he had the opportunity to do it. I can't blame him whatsoever for his stance on wanting the 1-for-1, or at least making sure that UCF wasn't hosting Florida at Camping World Stadium. But, with a new regime, there comes just different mindsets. And the new AD for UCF, obviously, he has a past of scheduling 2-for-1s with bigger opponents. He likes that. He realizes the revenue that it can still generate for the quote unquote smaller school. I understand UCF is technically a bigger school than UF. And I think it was a very smart move, and it's also smart that he's being so aggressive with it right out the gate.
Well, they certainly jumped all in. I mean, UF is, in my opinion, a top 10 program nationally. Like, say, over the last 20 years, I don't know how you couldn't come to that conclusion. They've got 3 national titles. Once you start with 96 on, that's pretty rarefied air. So, and it is the state institution. No offense to Florida State, it is the state. It's just true.
It is.
And it's a big deal that you get to play somebody that's, I'm guessing it's about an hour and 45 minutes away,
Yeah.
55 minutes, something like that. It's just something that makes sense. Heck, like UF plays Georgia. They play them in Jacksonville. That's kind of the border city. I mean, you're very familiar with that area. You've lived there. They could do things like that too. If they wanted to make it fun, and I guarantee you it would work. If you call up the people that run where the Dolphins play, they would take that game in a heartbeat. Now, Miami fans aren't going to want to hear that because that would be all about recruiting. Of course, that's my area of expertise. Right. I guarantee you that's something they could do. That would be killer. By the way, I'm all down. I'll buy you dinner if we get that game and we go do that game, because
perfect.
That would be a lot of fun. Those are the kinds of things you can do in a 2-for-1. Why not add another game? Just make it neutral site. Why not?
Right.
Because you do half the fans for both. Both schools are humongous, and for those who don't know, UF's around 52 to 55, something like that. And UCF is over 70. It's ridiculous how big UCF is.
It's over 70 now?
72.
Good Lord. I remember when I was trying to go there, it was just over 60, and I still thought that's like too much. Like I don't know if I can do that to people.
It's massive. As long as you don't mind walking in 100-degree heat, you're good, because there is no parking. I can assure you of this. I made sure to hit the check box for the media parking pass. That was the number one thing I was looking for on the application. No question about it.
I remember going to a game there a couple of years ago, and I did their media parking in the lines, because not only is parking bad, but traffic gets so bad in the big circle that is UCF. That was miserable. I think I sat outside of the stadium for 30 minutes before I could get into my spot.
Yeah, you need to go about 3 hours early, conservatively, because it's just not built for what it's come to be. So anyway, I like the series. I know you do as well. I know we both wish it was a little quicker. But for those that wonder, as a general rule, this sadly is how it works. I know just as an example, Notre Dame and Michigan have a game scheduled like in the 2030s, like the beginning of the series. It's like, oh my gosh, it's over 10 years away. And it's absurd, but that's a very common situation. So anyway, you and I transitioning here, you and I both went to what the Gators call Friday Night Lights the other night, and some of the best high school talent in the country was there. Aiden Williams was there, receiver. He impressed me a lot. Can't miss his red hair. He got an offer. One of the kids that I know well from the 7-on-7 circuit, he plays for C3 Elite in the Pensacola area, Raymond Cottrell. He literally walked up to me and goes, "I just committed to Florida." I'm like, "Oh, okay." I was getting ready to say hi. I had no idea. It was kind of funny. And he went and committed. And then, that's a big get for them. He's going to be a junior, class of 23. He's 6'2", 210, and he can go. Did you guys hear anything about him getting ready to commit? Because, I know him, and I know his 7-on-7 coach pretty well. I had no idea. Usually I have a little inclination. What did you hear?
Yeah, he had come and visited Florida in late June to do a camp, not the Friday Night Lights thing. It was one where there was like 600 people and maybe 2 or 3 relevant prospects. But he stood out. I mean, this is only a physical comparison, and I don't think I'm the only one that made it. I don't know if you did or if it was John Garcia that was with us the other night, but physically looks like Anquan Bolden. And that was like the first thing I took in. I was like, oh, man, this kid's 16, 17 years old. Like, he's a big dude. But he had told us at that point, he said, listen, I think I want to commit. I think I want to do this. And I think it was a parent, it was a coach. Someone said, hey, we're still doing a couple of these visits. Let's just see everything else. And then you go from there, because there's going to be a dead period coming up and you can kind of think it over at that point. And he got that. I think his 7-on-7 team visited 20 some schools throughout the month of June, something like that. But once that was all done, he kind of just solidified things. He talked to Jacob Copeland, who's someone that grew up in his area, someone he really got to bond with. And he paired that with understanding what Billy Gonzalez does at Florida's wide receiver position, because much like UCF, Florida develops wide receiver talent pretty well. I think they've had 6 receivers drafted or, if not drafted, signed as an undrafted free agent in the past 2 years. And those were the 2 key selling points to him. I mean, that's all he really needed to hear.
Well, that's a tremendous number, by the way. Anything over 1 per year is good. 3 per year? Yeah, that's big thumbs up.
I think it was 4 receivers drafted. Then Josh Hammond signed with the Jaguars as an undrafted free agent last year. He's still there. He's still in training camp this year with them. And Trayvon Grimes signed as an undrafted free agent with Philly this offseason, but had a knee injury in camp, I'm pretty sure.
Still, regardless, if all of them even got cut, to have 6 guys make NFL camps, bro, that's impressive for the Gators. Okay. Yeah, for those that don't know, and again, I know Cottrell pretty well. Just because he's 6'2", 210 pounds, you think, oh, he's just a boundary guy. He could play all 3 of the spots. He could play the slot. He could play to the field. He could play to the boundary. He can make cuts that guys his size, generically speaking, do not make. And that's why he had offers from, amongst others, Georgia, Notre Dame, Florida State, Miami. He could have went pretty much wherever he wanted to go. And again, like Zach said, he's got 2 years of high school left.
Yeah.
So he just happened to, be with a good 7-on-7 group and be around some good people that have taken him a place or two. And he liked Billy, I guess, or else he wouldn't have committed. And UF's a pretty cool school. So good for him. And he's a great kid. And he fits what Dan Mullen does with big receivers very well. That back shoulder fade will not be friendly. I've seen him one-hand the ball in the corner of the end zone when it was a terrible – I mean, he's got hands. So they've got quarterbacks there, obviously. That's a really big pickup for the Gators. So
yeah, he's really pairing up with a good QB too, even though it's a year before him. Nick Evers, the quarterback we got to see at Friday Night Lights as well. The way he can place that deep ball, like that one where Evan Stewart, forget it was some sort of double move, but he went up the seam last second, separated like 2 yards to the backside where Nick just dropped it in a breadbasket. I mean, those are the type of plays. Evers can make those throws. And on top of that, it's a very difficult catch to make considering the last second adjustment he had to do. But Cottrell is the type of player that can make those catches.
I've seen him do it. Yeah. Evan Stewart also helps the cause, by the way. If the Gators get him, I think he's as good a receiver as there is in the country that's not named Travis Hunter. I think Travis is the best. But
he's insane.
Yeah. He's so
good.
Pretty good. But Evan is probably right there next, and they're very similar. Twitchy kid, great hands, can run routes. And I do believe, unless I've misread about 20 different people from what they've told me, Nick Evers is doing everything in his power to at least give the Gators a good shot to bring in Evan Stewart. He plays in Frisco, which is suburb, like the first suburb out of Dallas. It's right. You don't even know when you go from one to the other. I know I was actually there when Garcia and I went to the Elite 11 in Dallas. That's where we were. Food is very good, by the way. Get the brisket. But
yeah, that's true. That's the truest statement I've ever heard.
Yeah, the Dallas area is, and the food is phenomenal. Great city. That kid changes your roster because for whatever reason, and I know Billy likes bigger receivers, they generally don't get a lot of the 5'11" to 6'1" kids that are really good with lateral mobility. Evan Stewart is the poster child for that. And he can still go over the top. I mean, he's not as big as Raymond, but he's 175 pounds or whatever it is, but he can fly and he can stop on a dime. You put him with guys like Raymond, and again, they've always got a big receiver pretty much in every class. I think it's a great fit because then who do you double?
Right.
Plus they got those quarterbacks. There's only a couple other schools that are even close to what Florida has done at quarterback in terms of recruiting over the last 3 years. Refresh my memory, the kid that's from Gainesville, what's his name?
Anthony Richardson.
That kid has a ton of talent, big arm. He can play tight end, DN. He can do anything. He's a great athlete. Last year they brought in a good kid. They've got Evers committed. They are set at quarterback. Somebody's going to hit. It's just a matter of, okay, who's it going to be? So Dan can coach them. Now they've got to get some more receivers around to do something. Anybody else impress you from Friday Night Lights?
Yeah, I just want to drop this comparison while I have the opportunity to on Evan Stewart. I think he's Stephon Diggs. I mean, from a high school recruiting perspective.
That's a really big statement, man.
I understand. I think of any receiver in this class that could be a Stephon Diggs type of player, I think it's him. I mean, that step back release. I think that step back release that he put on the other night, that's not something I've seen him do before. That was so polished. And he told me he started working on that, I think, 3 weeks ago. And
okay, that's the definition of natural ability right there.
Yeah, exactly. And on top of that, kid can levitate. Like you said it, he can go up and get it too. It may not be like Cottrell, but I've seen him just flat out jump. You could tell me his vertical is 38 to 40 inches, and I believe you. There's just such a combination of skills, immense ability to separate really at any point in the route, whether it's on a double move right off the release or last second needing to stretch out and go get it. He can do it. So, yeah, maybe it's a hot take, but I'm willing to pound the table for it. From Friday Night Lights. Yeah, he's legit. From Friday Night Lights, another one. It's a fellow 7-on-7 teammate of Cottrell, Shamar James. He's another Florida commit. Yeah, I mean, we put him in number 2 linebacker in the country in the SI 99, and I don't think he's above the number 10 linebacker anywhere else. So you guys got to trust our evaluations here. Kid is another one. He's like 6'2", 215, 220. He can stop on a dime. It's not stuff that you should be seeing linebackers do, but he can do it. And then it makes me wonder, because I know that John's personally a real big fan of him, downhill or dropping back in coverage. I'd like to still see a little bit more with the processing skills to actually shoot gaps. Playing that weak side linebacker, he will be a little bit more free ranging in Florida's defense compared to the Mike, compared to their star, compared to anyone like that. So it should be a good role for him. But from what we got to see, I mean, he could move.
When I first had the opportunity to watch C3 Elite, and he plays with them, and he plays with Raymond Cottrell, Coach said, watch this kid. And just organically, I'm like, okay, I don't know who Shamar, it didn't mean anything to me. And I'm like, oh my God. He was guarding guys that weighed 30 to 50 pounds less than him in space. Mm-hmm. These are Florida kids. These are Atlanta kids. We're good.
Yeah, exactly. Everything you want in a coverage linebacker, you've got right there.
And the way he's built, God blessed him. I mean, I didn't get blessed with those biceps.
No. So, and he's still got enough length on his frame to realistically get up to like 235, 240 before he's done with college. I'd say pretty easily even.
If he wanted to. I think they'll try to keep him a little lower than that just for coverage reasons. But, yeah, physically he could. He can rush the passer. He could do all kinds of things. But in today's world, I always tell my buddies if they, like, hey, man, I heard about this linebacker. You better be sending me somebody that can cover.
Exactly. It's almost like transitioned over time, really, in the past 5 or so years as defenses have gone so much more base nickel. Like, that's the priority now. You want to see these linebackers really excel in coverage, then you work on their run game development later. I mean, it's obviously integral to know both ways, but as college football keeps changing, as the NFL keeps changing, everything's going so pass heavy, you got to get these coverage linebackers and let them thrive in space. Because otherwise, tight ends these days, I mean, Kyle Pitts.
That's a pretty good one. He's the best passing tight end I've ever seen.
And as amazing as he is, and there may never be a tight end that's quite as physically talented as Kyle Pitts, but you better believe that more basketball players are going to start playing football because of the role that guys like him, Travis Kelce, break out in. Who are you going to defend him with? You got to get coverage linebackers.
Well, that certain tight end that I happen to know pretty well, who's a basketball player who only caught 3 passes last year, for a friend of mine who is the head coach at Berkeley Prep, Mr. Dominic Sayo. I think 24/7 has him ranked like the 36th tight end in the country, which is comical. He's top 5.
Yeah.
He's an NFL talent. He doesn't know what he's doing yet. He's only played 1 year high school ball. He was at Friday Night Lights. There's only so many guys built like that. So, yeah. But Shamar and him can compete, and Shamar can stay with him. And we're talking about a 6'5", 6'6" basketball kid that averages over 20 points a game, decides to play football, and made guys look bad in 7-on-7 this year when I saw him with Team Tampa. he was killing guys that weighed 30, 40 pounds less than him.
Right.
And he's, that's just absurd. He has no idea what he's doing yet. Those are the kinds of kids that UF's getting on offense. So again, they've got quarterback. There's really no reason not to be good. It's just they've got to figure it out up front, which is something that you and I have talked about off the record numerous times. And I actually had the opportunity for the next kid I'm going to mention interviewing this past Saturday at the Varsity Sports Network Orlando Media Day. And the prospect in question is Leyton Nelson. He's an offensive tackle, 6'6", 285, plays for Boone High School in Orlando, Florida, just outside of downtown. I mean, I have my take. I'm going to let you go first. But Leyton's a good kid. I interviewed him for a while. He's pretty candid. What have you heard about his recruiting situation?
I've heard that he's moved up Florida's board significantly. They offered him in mid-June. It was a couple weeks after Tyler Booker visited. Things were going well with Booker's recruitment, but, Florida was starting to become a little less of the favorite, it seemed, almost every day. Because at first, start of the month, I thought Tyler Booker was going to be a Gator. Full on, I mean that. And I should have known better. But as soon as they started realizing, as soon as that started becoming more of like, publicly, everyone was aware of that, Leyton Nelson shot up the board. He came up, he visited, he did a camp, a workout, got his offer. And as soon as that happened, I personally had not heard of Leyton Nelson before then. And I think that's something with this offensive line class this year is in the COVID year, obviously scouting was a lot more hands off in the past year and a half compared to previous years. And at a position like offensive tackle, you really need to see not just highlight tapes. You just can't depend on that. You got to see guys in person. And as such, I feel as though there's going to be a lot of late bloomers within this cycle at the tackle position, especially in Florida, because it seems like it's a lot thinner this year than others. And Nelson was really the first one that, really was a late bloomer. Brian, you've noted it, I think, 22 offers in 18 days or other way around?
18 and 22, I think, but who cares?
One way or another, just absurd.
That's absurd. The word I was going to use. Yeah, he told me he didn't receive his first offer. This is so weird. Part of it's due to COVID, what Zach just mentioned. Offensive linemen are usually kids that get offers when they work with guys right in front of them because O-line's about technique. Right. COVID wiped it out. There's just no way around it. There's a couple of kids over here in Tampa where I live that I know can play Power 5 that have 0 offers, 1 offer, 2 offers. And it's because they didn't get a chance to go to college camps, blah, blah, blah. It's just the way it is. Nelson told me he got his first offer from the old UCF staff. And, he's gotten Miami and all these other programs across the country. And it was a bunch of them in January. I don't know why everybody just decided, oh, he's good. The film was there. I'd seen it before. I don't know. But a spark was lit. And I believe it was 18 and 22 days, but whatever. That's insane. And now he's one of the most coveted prospects that's uncommitted in all of Dixie.
Right.
It's incredible. He sent me a picture, and I sent it to you. When he was a sophomore in high school, he didn't even start until he was midway through his sophomore year. Zach, I sent him a picture, and he said, man, he looks like a tight end. He was 6'5", 240 at the time, which, quite frankly, is what a Division I tight end is usually looking like coming out of high school. Now, he was a sophomore, but the way he has transformed his body, talking about Leyton Nelson, is incredible. He doesn't even look like the same human being. The haircut's changed and all that, but just width. Width. And I watched some of his film the other day. He's really good with zone step. He's been coached well. He's a very, very knowledgeable young man, works hard. He's very intellectual. He enjoys the intricacies of playing one of the most difficult positions. He wants to be a left tackle. I mean, that spot is hard in the SEC. I mean, you see guys at UF, etc. But he wants that challenge. Maybe that's one of the reasons he got a bunch of the offers. You got to really want that because you can get your head stomped pretty quick against some of the pass rushers in the South, ACC, SEC, Big 12, whatever. Everybody's got somebody. So, then you got Shamar James blitzing and stuff too. So
I think you mentioned in your interview that he wants to play left tackle, but he could also play right. And if it needed to happen, he could play center.
Yep.
That's quite a combination, but that just kind of speaks to the same thing you said. You've got to have a will to want to either be the blindside protector or to be the man in the middle of the offensive line controlling communication.
He is unique. and I spoke with him on the record and off, just shooting the breeze with him. I would say Nelson is one of those guys that if 25 years from now he was a college professor, I wouldn't be surprised. If he was a financial advisor, I would not be surprised. He's very intellectual. So the center spot, he talked about, I have the intelligence to play it. It is very complex in today's world to play center. Leyton Nelson understands that, but he, again, likes the idea of the challenge. So most guys just want to hit people, and that's fine. But he could, if you have value in playing different spots, maybe that's the other thing. I don't know, but it was really fascinating to me. So Leyton Nelson's a really interesting prospect. You mentioned to me, and I didn't even know this, I hadn't paid much attention to Twitter today, that UCF got a crystal ball from 24/7. I hate the crystal ball, but it is an indicator that something's going on. When I spoke with Leyton, he made it very clear that he didn't know where he was going, and that was Saturday. Face-to-face conversation, several points, about UF, several points about other schools. He visited Pitt and all these other schools, and it's, Louisville. It's probably UCF or Florida, but he didn't know where he was going. What have you heard anything in the last 24 hours that gives you pause about where Florida or UCF stand? I haven't heard anything.
Not now. I can tell you, I guess about a month ago when he was originally supposed to make his commitment, I think on July 4th, if I had had to have logged my own version of a crystal ball at that point, I think I would have gone Florida. Enjoyed the workout, got the offer, one of the biggest schools to offer right at that point. Like he told you, he grew up watching these teams in the state. The marquee university in the state just offered you. There's a bunch of momentum there. It doesn't happen. And, the same thing happened with Terrence Gibbs, their idea for the local running back from Orlando. He told us he wanted to commit on both of his visits to Florida in the month of June. It was reportedly supposed to happen right around the end of the month of June. Didn't happen. And for Florida, that worked out because Terrence Gibbs had a major knee issue last year. They wanted to see him work out, test the nerve damage, see if everything's all good before giving him the green light. But it won't always work out like that. If Leyton Nelson was ready to commit on July 4th, it's okay to take two offensive tackles if you're still thinking you have any chance of getting Tyler Booker because he was still on the market at that point. It's fine to take both of them if you have the opportunity to, especially if you're the University of Florida who hasn't landed a marquee offensive tackle since Martez Ivey in 2015. So, I guess about a month ago, if you'd have asked me the same question, I probably would have said Florida. At this point, who knows? I mean, he even said to you something about like the idea of maybe should I silent commit? Do I want to wait and continue assessing, or do I want to take a spot before it's gone? But with that being said, it's like the water's gotten a lot murkier.
Well, it's interesting. He mentioned to me like UCF has like one spot left for O-line. They've only taken 5 O-linemen over the last 2 classes. They need a massive class. But UCF is the most unique school in the country for recruiting because if you're going to be a grad transfer or just transfer out or JUCO, going to Orlando is pretty good. They've got 12 transfers. 12. That's a lot.
In this class.
Yeah, they're going to be, they'll be freshmen, sophomore, junior, whatever. 12. Now, several of them were SEC guys. One of them's from Notre Dame. I mean, they got some dudes. They got Big Cat Bryant from Auburn. By the way, I met him. He is a scary guy. Good luck to the defensive or the offensive tackles in the AAC. They have not seen anything like Big Cat. Good luck. But it was just kind of interesting because what do you say to that? It's unique. I don't know. But Leyton Nelson, if he goes to UCF, might as well just jump into this topic because it's been one that's going on for years with UF. How much heat is the O-line coach at Florida going to take if they lose to UCF?
I think there's 2 ways to answer the question because he'll take 2 different types of heat. He's got the fan base that will want his head. A lot of the fan base, and I'm not trying to speak for the fan base or give too much of an opinion myself, but a lot of the fan base wants his head already for the same reason that I just mentioned. The last notable offensive tackle that they landed was in 2015. And granted, Hevessy's only been here since the end of 2017, start of 2018, but every single offensive tackle that he's landed that's worth playing thus far is not an offensive tackle. He's a guard. That's just the way that they've recruited. And as such, they're starting at right tackle, a sixth-year guy, third year as a starter, and he's consistently been one of the worst pass-protecting tackles in college football. And also, you got to consider how much they threw the ball this past 2 years with Kyle Trask at the helm, a Heisman contender last year. And their right tackle has given up 70 pressures in 25 games. What does that tell you? It's just a bad combination. I mean, I think Hevessy's done a very good job of developing talent. I want to give him that credit. Juwan Taylor turned into a second-round pick in his first year that he was there. And Juwan Taylor was not a very good football player before the new staff showed up. Stone Forsythe, Brett Heggie both ended up with teams this past year, and neither of them were really inspiring in their 5 to 6 year careers at Florida in total before Hevesy got there. So, all the credit in the world. If you can go find more Ethan Whites, more Austin Barbers, who is an intriguing lower 3-star tackle, but from the Jacksonville area, who was a late bloomer last year, 6'7", 320 pounds, like the type of project you want in the SEC. John Hevesy can develop those types of talents. But again, you're in the SEC, and you're not getting offensive tackles. You can try and develop guys as much as you want, but you need that blue-chip talent. And Florida's not getting it. The coaching staff, Dan Mullen's been with John Hevesy for 20 years. I mean, I don't even know. Maybe I'm wrong, but it might date back to before the first time they were both at Florida. But no matter what, they were on the same staff. So it's kind of that familiarity thing. Like, I don't think Dan Mullen wants to make the change. I think he's very good friends with John Hevesy and a lot of the people on his staff. But at the same time, when will he realize that maybe that's what's best for the program?
If I remember right, when I went and met with Urban in 2001, when he got his first 2001, 2002, whatever it was, at Bowling Green, Hevesy was the O-line coach. Urban literally sent me over. He goes, go with Dan, and Dan was coaching the quarterbacks, and he just kind of let me watch and stuff. That was Dan's first gig. Hevesy was on that staff, if I remember correctly. They'd been together forever.
Yeah, then I would guess 2 decades, something like that.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's not that hard to recruit to UF. Okay, you live there. I've been on the campus numerous times. I have literally studied the state of Florida recruiting since around 90, 92, somewhere in there. It's not hard. For you to go from 2015, and Ivy played at Apopka, which is one of my all-time favorite programs. It's in the Orlando area. There's no excuse for that. Now,
Right.
John wasn't there in 15 and 16 or whatever, but he's had plenty of time. And for something to go that long at a major institution, you got to say what's going on.
Right.
And maybe he still gets Nelson, and Nelson can flat out play, but that would still only be one in 4 or 5 classes. That's bizarre. You need at least one kid that's on Nelson's level, if not higher, if you're UF and you want to beat Alabama, which is the only team anybody's recruiting against is Alabama. Let's not kid ourselves. You need at least one Nelson in every single class. Alabama last year arguably signed the nation's top 2 offensive tackles.
Right.
That's not good for college football. I mean, it's just not. And now they got Booker too. I mean, not only did the Gators not get him, he went to the school they're competing with. It's just bad on bad. So I'm curious.
Think about it too, because like I said earlier, all the reasons that Booker likes Florida. I mean, he grew up a fan, amazing relationship with Dan Mullen, was being recruited by basically the entire staff at one point because early on they thought he could play defensive tackle. So they had one of the best recruiters on staff in David Turner pitching in. They had a lot of stuff going his way.
Wow.
And, Alabama's Alabama. I get it. At the same time, I know for a fact that Tyler Booker, like anyone, wants to play early. He's not playing in his first 2-3 years even at Alabama. Whereas if there wasn't so much of a loyalty factor, Gene DeLance wouldn't be the starting right tackle for Florida. Tyler Booker could have pushed for that spot right out of the gate. I don't know how you can – I don't know how there's any way to argue against it. Like, these are the types of kids that Florida should not be missing on. But for some reason, if there's any position they've consistently missed on, it's offensive tackle at this point.
Yeah, it just continues to be a mystery. I really don't know. Okay, I'll get you out of here on this, Zach. UF has got a pretty good class going. is there anybody, regardless of position, offensive tackle or otherwise, that you think might be potentially going to commit between, let's say, now and the start of the Gators season, the first week in September?
I can see a couple of commitments coming.
Okay.
One of them I'm going to keep private for now. But
Fair enough.
But there's one that's also, not public knowledge that he's coming to Florida, because I don't know for sure that he is, but everyone knows he's committing this week. And Jalen Glover, running back, Lake Gibson, little guy. I keep making these physical comparisons, and I don't. Besides the Stephon Diggs one, I'm sticking to that. But cool. This, from purely looking at him, who do you think of? Because I think of Maurice Jones-Drew. 200-ish pound guy.
Right. And
like
Maurice Jones-Drew was good.
Yeah, exactly. And he obviously does not have the Maurice Jones-Drew top end speed. Like for a guy that was 5'9", 220 pounds to run a 4.38, it's just like, whoa. But Glover's a talented back. I'm a bit concerned about his size in the SEC. At the same time, Florida's done a decent job with Naquan Wright, who might be an inch taller than him. And he's also got, some pretty impressive explosion, some shiftiness. It's hard to bring down for being a stocky little guy. He's supposed to decide this Friday between Florida, I think Florida State, and a couple of other schools. And I could see it being Florida. He really, really, really enjoyed his workout. He was saying Greg Knox told him that everything he sees on tape, he saw in the workout. You could see him being used in a lot of different ways in Florida's offense. The way Florida should be able to pitch its offense to just about anyone, Jalen Glover likes. And he sees himself fitting in pretty well, especially with Gibbs, being a take at this point. As talented as Terrence Gibbs is, you just don't know about that knee, in which case there's a really great opportunity for Glover. If for some reason Gibbs couldn't play, Glover's that guy, a first running back that they landed and can actually play since Wright signed in 2019.
For those that don't know, Jalen Glover plays at Lake Gibson High School in Lakeland, Florida. About a year and a half ago, I started putting out tweets. I'm like, why doesn't this kid have more offers? Not necessarily the biggest guy, but he's legit. And like Zach said, he breaks a lot of tackles. He had a game last year like 350 or something like that. And he's playing 7A football. He's a really good football player. South Carolina, Florida State. He has a lot of offers now. It just, for whatever reason, it was later. But he's legit. And I think your point in regards to Terrence is pretty important. They have to take a second running back because they honestly have no idea. Now, knee regeneration from nerve damage is different than an ACL. ACL's bad. Right. Nerve damage is something you can't even calculate. It's not a finite term. So,
and he had told us it was more than just an ACL too. And fortunately the tears were clean, but it was through a couple of different tendons. And he says they're all healed, but same exact type of concern. What do we know about the nerve damage? What can we tell about the nerve damage? What is this knee going to look like in 5 years if nerve damage is a significant issue here? So I completely agree. And I think Florida even knew that before they took Terrence Gibbs. They knew after missing on running backs in the past couple of classes, they've got to restock.
Yeah, Glover's a good football player. So. Zach, well, thank you very much for coming on the show. We'll have to do this again pretty soon. I actually want to do kind of a state of Florida, where things stand with the programs kind of deal. And we've touched on a few of those points here tonight. But until then, thank you very much, my friend. I look forward to seeing you again very, very soon. Brian Smith, publisher of Inside the Knights. Zach Goodall, publisher of All Gators. Everybody have a great evening. Thank you very much for watching.